That is a wake up in the news. That is great. This is also the place for great memories and love advice. I gotta admit, I have stolen many hearts. Okay. Yeah, I just want to say,
would you do that Lady in the Tramp thing when you're sucking on that noodle?
And don't forget the phrase that pays, cold, hard, cage, and much, much more.
The El Chapo family is a family that we could all take a little bit from. You know,
That wasn't an analogy, that was deductive reasoning.
well, you know Chewbacca wasn't real, right?
That's what I'm saying.
What?
Yeah,
So welcome to the show, and here's your hosts.
Well, if you have the old one up today, that's fine.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon show of BCB Live. This is the producer here hanging out with you guys once again on this afternoon show. Sorry about the little bit of the intro thing there, or a bit of the talking. Bob and I are trying to discuss some slideshows that we're going to get up for you guys regarding some of the things we were talking about with the sleeper split and things such as that are going to be going on. So kind of keep on the lookout for that. We are going to be getting some more information, you guys, tomorrow about that. I know it's a bit confusing sometimes, so we're hoping that that will help alleviate some of that and maybe answer some questions that you guys are having that maybe did not get asked today. Now, we do have quite a bit of news going on, and a lot of it has to do with Amazon. Now, if you guys have been keeping your ears to the ground, you've probably heard that Amazon today actually bought MGM, the large movie entertainment company. I'm sure we've all seen movies by MGM. You know, the Roaring Lion. So they actually bought MGM for $8.45 billion in a move that is boosting streaming services to compete against Netflix and Disney. So they are acquiring things such as James Bond, Shark Tank, let's see, a lot of things. I mean, Rocky, RoboCop, Pink Panther. The name escapes me immediately. The Wizard of Oz. All of these movies, huge cult classics, and even Gone with the Wind. All of these are going to be going under Amazon's domain now, and that's going to be part of things that they own. So for much of the past decade, however, MGM has been juggling bankruptcy and kind of a revolving door of owners while its newer releases dwindled. And for a lot of the time, a lot of its money has been coming from these old titles such as James Bond and Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, so on and so forth. Now, Amazon is going to be now buying the entire thing and probably trying to revitalize it now. It does have its own studio, Amazon, I should say, but it has been a bit of a mixed bag. While some of the shows that they have put out have won Emmys and a few other things, a lot of the other films they've made have not really clicked, and a lot of the shows that they've made aren't too great. But they will start streaming Thursday Night Football next year, and are also producing a Lord of the Rings show, which reportedly is going to cost $450 million for the first season alone. So a lot of cash coming out of Amazon right now to fuel up its streaming services, but also a lot of cash coming out for another realm as well. Amazon is also thinking about opening a brick and mortar pharmacy to compete with CVS and Walgreens. CVS shares and Walgreens shares actually fell down 3 and 4% respectively over the past week because of this announcement that Amazon is hoping to open a brick and mortar pharmacy. Now, according to the report, discussions are in just the exploratory stages, and if Amazon moves forward with the idea, it will take up to a year for the company to actually start opening stores. However, it has shown interest in expanding into healthcare over the past several years. In fact, it actually acquired the online pharmacy called PillPack back in 2018 in order to start entering business with what they are calling Amazon Pharmacy. Another move that actually sent the stocks of many drugstores tumbling. And with that new service, customers in most states can actually get prescriptions covered by many insurers and get medications delivered to their door through Amazon. So whether this actually fleshes out or not, I think that is a way that or a area that Amazon is hoping to expand into. And it's interesting to me to see all of the different, I should say, business places that Amazon is extending into. I mean, they just spent billions of dollars on a movie company and now are spending probably millions, if not billions, to go into the pharmaceutical company as well. And they are just continuing to expand into different areas and kind of webbing out into all of these different places. So definitely an interesting thing to think about. Regardless of how you feel about Amazon, it is interesting to see all of it, but it almost feels mundane in a sense that it's like, yeah, Amazon has all this money. They're just going to keep buying and expanding into new markets. So we'll see what ends up happening and where they're going to go next. Now, recently we've had a container shortage, whether that be for trucks or for ships. We have noticed it quite a bit over the past few months here. The company Hapag-Lloyd has actually increased its container order by 60,000 20-foot equivalent units. This sharp increase in demand of these containers has actually led to a shortage across the entire world. And a lot of this is due to a few imbalances. These can be things such as exports from Asia, but also owing to the congestion in the ports and delays in hinterland transports. So we've seen these delays with things like the Suez Canal and a lot of other things. A lot of shipping is taking longer to actually come into play because a lot of ports are closing. Now, last month, Hapag-Lloyd said that it actually ordered 150,000 TEUs of standard and refrigerated containers from a Chinese manufacturer to be delivered this year, but they're not expected to come in until the third quarter of this year. Now, the lack of containers and slow turn times are particularly apparent during the U.S. import surges. And that shortage became much more than a blip whenever the import surge in the long-lasting U.S. ports experienced by Chinese factories reopened after COVID-19 forced lockdowns last year. Now, the U.S. port exports of empty containers have actually skyrocketed as part of an industry effort to get the boxes back to Asia as quickly as possible to be refilled and shipped out again. So because of this, all of our containers are leaving, but taking so long to come back that we don't have any empty containers to fill, and we don't have any product to sell either. So at the Port of New York and New Jersey, for example, the number of emptied exports in March leapt to 77.5% year over year. That is an incredible amount of empty containers being exported from the ports every single year. And so hopefully with all of these purchasing of new containers, we can actually alleviate some of that shortage we're seeing and get a little bit of our shipping back on track and maybe get our exports back up as well. Because right now we're just sending out those empty containers, hoping to get product back, but not really having enough empties to cover all of the costs for this. Now, that's all I've got for the news. We are joined here by our esteemed and wonderful safety director, Mr. Buckle Up Bob. Bob, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine.
What
How
you
are
do?
doing?
You know,
Steamed, huh?
esteem. I feel
Word of the day, or
yeah. I feel like I use esteemed a lot whenever I have you on the show. Is that not accurate? You don't feel esteemed?
yeah, it depends who you talk to.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think you're esteemed. How about that? Well, what's going on, Bob? How have you been today?
Oh, pretty good. Good. Busy. New drivers in orientation. Good couple of people there. Lots of questions. Love it when you get in orientation and they ask questions, and that's really what we want to focus on the rest of this week. Is we want everybody on the call on the show to ask questions. If you know, great. If you got the answers, that's awesome. But let's make sure everybody. There's no dumb question. What's the old saying? The dumbest question is the one that wasn't asked.
I think so. Or I thought it was just there are no
dumb questions.
Dumb questions, right?
So, and again, sometimes, questions will come up where I aren't 100% sure of the answer, so I have to look it up. So it helps me educate too as well sometimes, and just get a second opinion. Sometimes I think I know the answer, and I just want a second opinion. So again, we are going to be talking a lot about this, and so we just really want our drivers. I've never understood not wanting knowledge. I've always wanted it. Yeah, there's certain things that maybe I don't dive in deep enough to really research because they don't interest me, right? But if there's knowledge about my job or something that I can do, right? When you're looking at your finances, right? You look at articles that are going to help you with that finances, with mortgages, all that kind of stuff. So this is no different. This is your job, how to make money, and how to be more profitable at it, which quite frankly is going to allow you to drive more revenue miles. And I really see that. And they're going to be safer revenue miles where you don't have to bust your butt to try to get more money because you've got rules that are going to help you do that.
Yeah. And I think that is something everybody can benefit from, whether it's the driver or the driver manager. I think if a driver is able to maximize their efficiency and feel better while they're driving, then everybody wins, It's safely on the road. Everybody else is safer because of it, because now you guys are at the top of your game, and you win as well because you're at the top of your game. There's no downside.
Yeah, used to have a discussion with my wife because I did all the financial stuff, all the investments, all this. So I would try to explain it to her, right? And she didn't want to know. I says, you realize I could take everything and not have any of it in your name, and you wouldn't know because you don't want to know. She goes, but you wouldn't do that. I said, I know I wouldn't, but I could. And she just kept going, but you wouldn't. And I'm like, man, you're missing the whole point. If I could, why would you not want to guard against that?
It's trust. I mean, she just trusts you. I think it's, I think it's different because that's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. You guys are both living together as one,
Well, now maybe more than ever, but, when this was all happening, this was like 15 years into the marriage, it's like nothing's ever written in stone, Now we've celebrated 35, so, this last April, so it's like, now it's like, I'm too old to go out and start that process all over again.
I think even 15 years to me, I don't know, man. If I was in something for 15 years, as long as I thought it was going decent, it just seems so hard to just be like, yeah, well, 15 years, I guess. Well, I'll just have to find it out again. I can barely handle being single as it is. I don't know how to talk to people anyways. I can't imagine not talking to anybody for 15 years and then having to like hop back on. That's insane to me.
Well, my dad always said, and I loved it, he says, what he's found over his years was you get out of it what you put into it most of the time. You can make anything really bad, but you can make some bad things tolerable or good. It's just the effort you put in, If you're gonna be one of those people that just say, oh, woe is me, and oh, this is crap, and I'm always complaining, right? Well, then it's always going to be that way, right? Because that's the culture I've set for myself. And so you're never going to get any possible reward out of what you're doing because you always have this, as I call it, glass half empty, right? I always she's the glass half empty girl and I'm the glass half full guy because, I'll say, hey, we're going to go to Hawaii, right? She goes, man, I hope the plane don't crash. It's like, why do you go there?
Like, yeah, of course not.
That's automatic. But it's just that glass half empty. And I was like, why do you always got to go there? You got to think of the worst possible thing that could happen versus, hey, we can spend a week in Hawaii, right? And nice waters, beaches, and a tropical paradise. But no.
I hope the plane doesn't crash.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, we went to Israel a couple years ago, and everybody's excited. I mean, I was like, all the stuff we're going to do, right? She goes, man, I hope war don't break out. And I'm like, really?
Like, yeah, for sure, man. Me too. Like, that would probably be the worst thing that could happen right now is just, oh, these are some nice old ruins, and then all of a sudden you get like,
here's some fresh new ones.
Here's some new ruins.
New ruins for you. God. Oh goodness, but yeah, so that's kind of our internal battle there. Is like, she goes, yeah, I know. I don't know why I always got to do that. I said, trust me, you will always think of the worst thing.
Well, you guys balance each other then. It's
we do. Actually, we do.
You are so positive for her, and she has to be maybe not realistic, but at least tones it down because there is, you can be overly positive too. It's nice to have a level head, though I don't know if, oh man, hope the plane doesn't crash is super level, but regardless.
Yeah, I always tease her. I say, the first 16 years, you were a saint, and you allowed me to grow up. all this stuff. I said, but boy, you are getting even the last 19. And she just laughs. So yeah, but we do have that good yin and yang. We get talked about like that a lot. They'll say, you guys just seem to work really well. And I said, yeah, it's been a lot of practice and a lot of patience, a lot of trust. You know, like you said, there are going to be bad days just like at work or anything you do. You're going to have the peaks and valleys. You just can't get too down in them valleys and too high in them peaks, and you're going to be just fine. So, and then at the end, you get to look back and say, wow, what a trip, right? What a journey. And, you know, not a lot of women would have put up with some of the early stuff that with me playing ball all them nights. And at the end, some of guys wouldn't put up with us. So you just got to have that mentality that, hey, I committed to this. I'm in it for the long haul. So some words of advice for when you get engaged this weekend.
Yeah, it's always this weekend, Tom. It's always this weekend. And before we get into that safety topic, you want to give us that phrase that pays, Bob? It's not Thursday yet, so we still got time.
We can still do it.
We can
Thank
still
you.
do it. Yeah.
A big mistake is using the horn instead of the brake.
And one more time.
A big mistake is using the horn instead of the brake. And so, hey, this week we have been really ramping up for today, tomorrow, and Friday on the hours of service, right? And I wonder if I should maybe I should go into the weather first on this one, just because this could end up with some conversation. And so I do got the weather here, and then I got to figure out how to get back on. Oh, I got it. Back on the other thing. But some drivers are calling in with some rain or some bad weather up in Pennsylvania. There are some scattered storms, if you will. So, I mean, you've got some storms right here, Chambersburg, up there. What is it? There's the Susquehanna. So I guess that's right in coming into Harrisburg. See if we can zoom out. There it is. So yeah, just a little bit west of Harrisburg, and Millersburg's got some strong cells. But you can see they're really spotty and all over the place. The heavy stuff is right here, Louisville, Kentucky. You're getting hit. These are current radars. So this was an hour ago. So we'll put it kind of in motion. So you can kind of see, you see all the lightning strikes up here. So these little small cells are packing a pretty good punch, if you will, up there in the Scranton area right up here. You've got some strong storms as well. These here, you don't see a lot of lightning flashes, just a few. So probably dumping just a whole lot of rain. But again, that's what we said was going to happen today. And then the wind gusts. So we're still out here. So let's get this current. So here you can see the 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, which is what we thought was going to happen. That's the forecasted. So as we can see, I don't think much of it happened. There's 26 miles per hour gusts. And so up here in Pennsylvania with the storms, 21. So again, not getting, there's a 26 there. So not getting the wind gusts we thought. And then again, we said the west was going to pop up as well. So again, here we got in Kansas where the storm's going to 39-mile-an-hour gusts in Kansas. Right up here to Utah and Wyoming, 32. So just kind of what we thought. There is that 39 there in Kansas. What do we got here? 37. So we thought it would be the mid to lowers, but we do have a couple areas where they're getting the stronger winds near 40-mile-an-hour gusts. But really, just 10 miles under the speed limit if you're heavy, 15 or to 20 if you're really light or empty, and you should be okay. But you got to watch that speed or that wind speed in the areas you're in. So here's the forecasted rain. And again, you can see it right there coming through Louisville. And it's currently going on right there. And in Oklahoma and Kansas. So again, we'll kind of overlay that with the radar. And you can see Kansas is forecasted for some storms. Not really quite developing. Got one little small pocket here north of Nest City. Right kind of in the middle there. So that one's going on, but not really big in area. The big one's going through western Tennessee, western Kentucky, right through to central Ohio, and starting to move into Pennsylvania as well. So be on the lookout for them storms. Hey, some of these are strong. If you're the captain of your ship, pull over, ride out. Just let us know. Hey, the storms seem bad. I'm going to, and here, send us a picture. Them are always great. If you can safely do so. Let us see that lightning and that heavy rain. So, we can warn others as well. So as I said, we are talking about our hours of service. So today we are going to, we kind of started this morning with the minimum requirements, okay? So one of the things that we got to do is just remember there's 3 criteria when you're pausing your 14 or, in a sense, splitting your sleeper berth, okay? That always, I like pausing the 14 because it's less scary to drivers. When you say split sleeper, they kind of tune out right away. I don't want to split sleeper. But all of this is just splitting your day. That's really all it's doing. You're pausing your 14. You're using some of your sleeper break to help that happen. And so there's 3 criteria you must meet. And the numbers you got to remember are 2, 7, and 10. Okay, and tomorrow I have a slide that I sent the producer. We'll have it up to this in words so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about and some examples. But basically, you have to meet, one of them breaks has to be at least 2 hours, okay? And the other one has to be at least 7. Now, you may be out there sitting there saying, well, that don't equal 10. That is the 3rd requirement. So what that does is by putting the wording that way, it lets anything in between, you do have to add up to 10. So it can be 2.5 and 7.5, right? They both meet the 2, they meet the 7, and they meet the 10. But if you have an hour and 50 minutes, and then you have a 9-hour break, right? Or an 8-hour and 20-minute break, that meets the 10, that meets the 7, but it doesn't meet the 2. So all 3 have to happen. So some examples of compliance would be 2 and 8, right? They both meet the minimum, 2 and 7, and add up to be 10. 2 hours and 25 minutes, 7 hours and 35 minutes, right? Both meet the 2-7 minimum requirements and add up to be 10 or more. And we really want that to be over 10. Try not to cut them too short in case we have that little 30-second to a minute satellite delay, as I call it. And so some of the non-compliance, right? 3 hours and 19 minutes, 6 hours and 50. We meet the 2, we meet the 10, we don't meet the 7, right? So you just it's that simple. Remember, 2, 7, and 10, and then you just have to qualify both of them, right? The thing to remember is when you're taking the long break, whatever that one is, if it's 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, whatever it's going to be, it has to be uninterrupted sleeper berth, okay? The short one can be combination of off-duty and sleeper berth, but the long one cannot. And so what that means, the reason I bring that up is you got to make sure you're not going to move, because if you personal convey that puts you on the off-duty line, it will interrupt that long break. So that's the one thing you got to remember when you're logging. Understand what your logging and your selections are going to do. So again, no movement of any kind in that 7-hour minimum or more, okay? Now, if you need 7.5 and you've gone 7 hours and 40 minutes, right? So you've qualified, yes, you can still stay off duty if you're not ready to leave and personal convey, because you got your 7 over the required that you needed to balance your 10 without being interrupted with any kind of a driving mode. So again, just to give you some ideas, we'll kind of breach this afternoon because I never know. We usually get more in the morning, and plus this gives me a chance to kind of practice it a little bit, right? So, it was on this side. It don't. Okay.
You can just
Will I?
The other way.
No, it don't. Uh-oh. Sorry, everybody. I must have did. There we go. Is there just one slide? Oh, I'm sorry. It's coming up there. I told you I needed to practice, right? So let me see where we start. Here we go. This is the great example of what I want to talk to you all about. And this is what happened to one of our drivers, right? Under the old rules, we started at 4 a.m. Our hours are up at 18. The 14 is over no matter what we did, right? So, I have all this written down here. And you can see we did our on-duty beginning of shift pre-trip, right? We did our driving. We did driving 80 miles, right? We got to a stop. We did all these things that normally would get us back here at 18, what did I got that at? 1850. We can go back in the sleeper berth. But what you see that is not feasibly allowed. Even though we only drove 9 hours and 55 minutes, we went over our 14 by 50 minutes. So we are either A, in violation if we continue to come home to Mansfield, or we would have to shut down before this 1800, take another 10 hour break, roughly 50 to 60 miles from home, right? But under the new rules, there we go, we make it back. And the reason being is this 2 hour and 20, the first one does not qualify, right? It does not meet the 2. So we started at 4, we got 2 hours and 20 minutes. So now our day doesn't end till out here in 2000 land, right? 1460, yeah, out here around 2020. And as you can see, we were home before 1900. So you basically made it home with about an hour and a half to spare, right? And as long as we now do not move, the key is, it's hard to show on the break, on the graph because it goes over to the next day. But when we went back into the sleeper, this is the big break. We are in here for 5 hours and 10 minutes to close out that day, meaning to give us that 10-minute cushion, we stay in the sleeper 2 hours and 30 minutes past midnight without any movement. So about 2 hours at 2:35, I can drive tomorrow morning and do whatever I want, right? Within reason. That qualifies half. So I would have the balance here. And again, that's a whole nother conversation. But you can now take your 10 hours, finish it up. So at 4 hour, almost 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm able to drive and have a full day, right? And I made it back. I got to sleep in my own bed, all because of that rule change. That's how important this is, you know? And you can apply it to so many other things. Let's say this was rush hour traffic. You know, I started my day later, but now I'm going through some major metropolis at this 16 to 1800 where rush hour is prevalent, right? I can now stop somewhere around 15:30, sit in there till 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 1800, and now drive through that rush hour traffic that's not there anymore, safer, more efficient with my mileage, right? My revenue per mile has to go up because if you're driving 5 miles an hour for, say, 50 miles versus 50 miles an hour, right? You've now leveled that down, 10 times as fast? So your revenue per mile has to go up. And what's really great about that is even though you took 2.5 in that sleeper, you really didn't lose 2.5 hours. Because again, if that trip going through that city would have took you 2 hours, right? Now you sat in here for 2.5, you're going to go through there about 30 minutes to 45 minutes later than you normally would. So even though you took 2.5 hours off, you might have lost about 45 minutes. You actually gain, and then you're also going to be more productive, less stress. We all know less stress leads to less fatigue. So it's really important that you ask questions, log it, and realize it. The main thing I want you to understand is just know that if you're close to that 2 hour mark somewhere, sit it out and get it, even if you don't use it. As Drive Safe Dave said, we don't have to use this. Absolutely not. We're not saying you're being forced to use it. We're saying, hey, why not? If you understand the rules, then you know that, hey, I'm sitting here an hour and 55 minutes. I'm going to sit here another 10, and I'll have that 2 hour pause if I need it. Maybe I won't need it to get home. Maybe I will. Maybe I need it to get to a safer truck stop or a better one with more amenities that I like. You know, you all have your favorites. So now you know, hey, if I do this, I might be able to extend, pause my 14 and get to that location that I want. Maybe the truck stop's full, right? I've now extended my day as long as I've got enough driving time. Remember, that doesn't change. You can never go over your 11. But as long as I've got enough driving time, I now free up. If you stop and think about that, boy, you get rid of the stress of overcrowded truck stops at night. You get a little bit more flexibility to get to that one you want or get to the next one that might be available to you because this one's packed, right? So again, all improving safety, all improving your revenue. And let's face it, everybody here knows that your fuel mileage is better if you're driving at 50 through a city than 5 miles stop and go traffic, right? You are going to lose some fuel. So there is just savings and benefit upon benefit by understanding the rules. Again, please understand, we're not saying you have to use it if it's available. what we're saying is understand it so that you know that, hey, why not sit here another 5 minutes and get my 2 hours in case I need it? In case I need that tool at the end of my day or whatever, maybe it comes out to where it benefits you. And so, but the worst thing you can do is not understand that. And like that driver did a couple months ago, leave with 4 minutes. All he had to do was sit there another 4 to 6 minutes, and he left a little early because he did not know what could have happened to him. And he ended up taking a 10-hour break, 45 minutes from home. So, again, we're going to go through that even more as the days go, because we really, really want you all to understand it. We want our DMs to understand it so they can talk you through it. So we're going to be training the DMs. We want our customer service. You know, this should help you all with your on-time delivery, right? Let's say you wake up and you're a little tired, right? Or maybe you woke up and you were planning on a 10-hour break, but you're wide awake after 7.5 hours, right? You're 2 hours from the customer. So you know what? I can make this. So you drive. And then an hour in, you feel yourself tired. You thought, well, maybe I wasn't quite awake. It's all right. You scheduled 10 anyway. Go back in that sleeper, right, for that balance of that 2.5 hours. You're still going to be at the same point at that customer at the same time. You just moved around the 2-hour driving plus the 10-hour break. So it's still 12 hours whether you break it up or not. But you're more efficient, you're more awake, you're more alert, you're more safe. And then if you do make it, now you've added even more flexibility because now you go back in that.
So Andy asked a question here and said
Yes.
that a local driver voiced concern about the split once they get day cabs because they have no sleeper. So would you be able to address that to the local drivers on how this will affect them once they're in day cabs?
The day cabs are going to be hard. You're going to have to get in a hotel. You know, that's going to be something that for Scott's people. And we can look at that, Andy, and that's a great, great question. Yeah, I do believe they're going to. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of the local drivers that are going to be in day cabs, they're never up against their hours. Most of the ones I've talked to and we've looked at their logs, they hardly ever hit the 10-hour driving mark. So they're really not up against that. They're usually home every night. I could see this being a big advantage for drivers taking the Houston to Dallas run, right? You got to be right on the money, and everything's got to work out for you to make that in 11 hours driving. It's tough sometimes, but guess what? And that's going to be the problem because you're never up against your 14. What gets you up is that 11, and this is not going to help the 11. Okay, it does not pause the 11. It is what it is. You're just going to be, as long as you've got the 14. But what it could do is instead of getting slowed down, everything being perfect, you don't have to drive through the rush hour traffic. You know you're going to come through Austin or somewhere, right, at rush hour. Hey, you've got that extra 14, and as long as you don't go over your 11, maybe you do get it back, because now that's where it's a great advantage, because like I said, instead of going through Austin at 10 miles an hour, stop and go, maybe you clip through there at 50, and that's what, 4 times faster, right? So again, and still safe, right? So thank you, Andy. That's a great question. We got some videos, producer, before we go to some questions? Yes, sir. Here we go. This is one of the reasons we've been really encouraging you all to slow it down, especially in wet weather. And we've seen some videos where the spray is, and I think we'll see another one today, where the spray is so much that we shouldn't really be going that fast. And here's why. It's not you necessarily that's a danger, although it is dangerous. When I looked up, next week we're going to probably talk about hydroplaning because I got a lot of information. But it typically is a higher risk starting at 40 miles per hour. So again, of course, a lot of other factors go into that. How much rain? How are your tires? Your weight, right? All that kind of stuff goes into it. But here's what it is. These white pickup trucks, right? These little light pickup trucks, they can't control it. And if they're going fast by you, they're going to hit them puddles and that water, and they're going to spin out. And there's one that did that and was in an accident. Here's one where we slowed down. We went over the railroad tracks. But again, they were still so rough. And we were doing under 30 here, folks. We were doing 30 approaching it. We were on the brakes, but it jarred the camera loose. So, and you've seen how that truck jumped and bounced around there. And this van. Watch this van go across there. You know, that back end raised up pretty high. So again, be mindful of these railroad crossings, and especially if you don't know them, you're going to have to really slow it way down. And so, again, we're going to watch it again. Here we go. All right. And here's what I'm talking about. You know, I believe we're doing 61 miles an hour. And then look at that water. Now, you stop and think if that white pickup truck, right, that we just saw in that one that was an accident, and maybe it was a similar situation, they lose control there, right? We might have been heavy enough to get through it, but that's not the point. The point is, what happens if that white car spins out in front of you? You can't stop. And you've just got to be mindful of that in this weather. It is that time of the year for these showers and strong storms, and we see it all over the country right now going on. The next one, that's going back the wrong way. Hey, we're still tailgating at 68 miles an hour. We're traveling 100 feet per second over that, right? And we're about 150 feet here by the stripes. We did a good lane change without getting right up on them and not jumping out there quickly behind another car. But just be mindful that, hey, this is pretty good, but we just want to slow it down a little bit. Know that you're traveling at 100 feet per second. Get you an extra truck length in there and make that lane change. So pretty good job overall. Here's a great job. We're going through a tunnel. We've got traffic everywhere. I believe this was in Colorado. Brakes come on. We stay in our lane and are able to stop. Look at the distance we still got. Great job there. That's what we're talking about. And that is how these streaks go. That's how we protect life, right? We're not plowing into somebody because we're not paying attention. Just a tremendous job here. And I believe that was by Mr. Todd LeClaire. And here's one, you know, we showed a couple where we needed to slow down in the rain. Here's one where we're doing a great job, right? We're down to about 50 miles per hour. We're keeping our space, though. People come into our lane, and we've got some space going, you know, increasing our space. So great job. And that was by Mr. Martin Ramos. Great job, Martin. You can see that truck flying out there in the hammer lane. So that ends the slides. Do we got anybody with any questions or comments?
Not as far as I can see, but
Okay.
I did have a question, or we do have one. So I did have a question though. So what kinds of things are you going to be touching on in the slides tomorrow, just so that people who are on now can know what to expect and know to jump on tomorrow?
We're going to look at them graphs. I think the graphs tell the story, and then, you know, ask questions that maybe, hey, but what about in this situation or that, you know? Again, the 11, you can't go over it, you know. The 14, you still can't go over it. So I guess in a sense, it kind of pauses the 11, but it just pauses your day for that small thing. But you can never go over the 14 hours. When I say over the 14, that's around that 2-hour break. So what you did before counts, and what you do after counts before you have to go in it. But that pause, I love the terminology because, yes, it's a split, but the pause is really what you're doing. You're pausing your 14, which usually we all have plenty of, you know, or you've got plenty of driving time. So we usually run out of our 14 before our driving time. There are a few cases, but most of the time that's what we do. And this is huge on letting that do that. So we're going to really be talking about that and then kind of touching on some of the benefits of it. And then Friday, I do have a screen that I sent you that lists some of the really benefits that can happen. And there may be more the drivers think of. So Who we got?
We have 2 people on. So first up, we got John Moreno, and then we got Leslie Warner. So John, what do you have for us this afternoon,
John.
sir?
Mr. Moreno. Are you there, buddy?
All right, Leslie, what do you have for us this
Hi, Leslie.
afternoon?
Hi, good afternoon, y'all. First off, I want to let you know that there is a bad record leading up to Canada. So if you're headed westbound, you're going to take 49 south, back up around, waiting out. Second off, I wanted to know if you push that 2 and then take a 10-hour break.
No, that you just what you it does, I guess, in one way, Leslie. You have to have at least the balance of that part of that 10 has to be in the sleeper. So if you stop for say 2 hours, then 8 of that 10 must be uninterrupted sleeper berth. If it's just off duty, it doesn't treat it as a break because it is sleeper berth required for the long part. So if you were in there 2 hours and you did 8 hours and 15 minutes in a sleeper and you woke up and then switched it to off duty for the next hour and 45 or two, yes, you would qualify for your pause. But you do have to have the long break in the sleeper berth. Does that help? Yeah, no, not really, because the teams can, they get to stop and switch over to the next one, because you all have 14 hours, right? And so that's 28, and there's only 24 in a day. So you're absolutely right, Leslie. Don't see a huge break, other than, like I said, there is some things where you could do to pause it to go through rush hour traffic is where I could see maybe a team helping to where you would be more efficient on your shift or whatever, getting through some of these major cities. Yeah. If you're fatigued a little bit, hey, I'm not going to wake up my partner, but I need a couple hour nap because I'm sitting here, whatever the reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am. Great question. We got anybody else, producer? Did John Marino make it?
No. Not that I can see. We do have Jeff Marsh. What do you got for us today, sir?
Hey, Jeff.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was gonna let you know, Austin is bad now. Their traffic late at night, so you're gonna be sitting with, you do probably just 8 hour break. Just like you said, it don't matter when you start. So like the only way the analogy works out, you did the 8 hours sleep, and then then you could go through Austin, and then when you get to your customer, then you do your 2 hour break right there, and then still your hours back. That's the only way I'll analogy. And for like
Oh, go ahead.
for the team, and for the teams, the only thing that would probably hurt the team is if they're on a cycle. Like Justin always says, they're they work 12 hours. It's like 12, 12, 12,
Mm-hmm.
12. So if you split it, then that would offset your schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be tweaks and things, and right, same thing for Atlanta. There's traffic around the clock, but we're not talking about traffic around the clock. We're talking about the heaviest traffic, and that's always going to be in rush hour. So yes, while there's traffic all through the day, especially with road construction, there are still parts of the day that are just impossible to pass, and at any kind of speed almost. And that's going to be your 4 to 7, 3:30 to 6:30 kind of range. And then it will lighten up. Will there still be traffic? Absolutely. But again, what we're looking at is stopping the 5 mile per hour movement. And even if we come through Austin and we do 35 or 40, you are still doing it 7 times faster than 5. So that's really what you're looking at. And again, every captain is the captain of their ship. They got to make them calls. But it's just, the first thing you got to do is really understand. Then you worry about the scenarios when you can use it and when you shouldn't. But if you don't understand it, the scenarios don't matter, right? We got anybody else, Mr. Producer?
Yeah, Cowboy. What's going on, Leroy? What
Cowboy
do you got for
up.
us? What do you got for us? There you go.
Hey, Leroy.
Hey, I just got a quick question. I know it. If you had a customer and you had your 10-hour break almost over, and they asked you to move to another dock,
Are you moving to the dock to be loaded or unloaded, or are you just moving out of the way? Yes. When you hit personal conveyance, okay, one of the things that allowed says moving from a dock after loading or unloading. So yes, as long as you're moving out of the way, you are not going towards your next dispatch. You're not working. You're not moving so they can unload you. You are absolutely allowed to use personal conveyance for that.
I would say I just want to make sure.
Yep. Yeah. The best thing to do is when you select PC, it gives you the allowed and not allowed. Really look at them over because there's 4 alloweds and there's 3 prohibited, I think is what the term they use. So just kind of read that. Really, you're almost safe anytime you're not trying to save hours, right? In other words, what I mean by that is, hey, I'm doing this so that I don't have to start my clock. Well, that's wrong. I'm doing this so that I can save my 11-hour drive time. That's wrong. But the thing that personal conveyance and yard move were done was to allow a driver to legally move when they're out of hours because they have to. Okay? If you don't have to move, then of course you don't use it. But like you said, if they're making you, Leroy, move out of that dock and just park by another one so that you can finish your break, absolutely, that is right there written right in the allowed. So great analogy of that, or a great example of that, Cowboy. That's exactly what it's designed to use for. You're not saving your 11 or anything. You don't have any hours and you're being required to move. And that's really what you want to do. You know, I see a lot of them, some of the selections that drivers are using, they're using some of the automatic one, and I don't know if it's because they don't want to type or what, but just hit the other button and say required to move. That's the only 3 words you need. Required to move. Not customer made me move, not this person made me move. Just put required to move. That is the best thing you can put on your log when using the personal conveyance, if that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, because I was a customer the other day and I was on my 10-hour break. I had like left. Hey, go to that dock. We need to move to the dock.
Ah, yep. And again, the key there is, I think, just noting on your log required to move. All right. Thank you, sir. You too, buddy. Be safe out there. Who else we got, producer?
Yeah, we got David Mason. What do you have for us this afternoon, sir?
Hey, David.
Hey, good afternoon. My question about that. Thought out here go to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Not out out. Not being hired. That
It's in the middle of your day.
yeah, like you stop around
No, technically you do not. Yeah, what you're describing is technically you do not. While you've satisfied a 10-hour, you're trying to reset your 70, and so technically that is viewed as, from a company and a legal standpoint, as you are out of hours because you are out of your 70, and you know that interrupting that break would mess up the reset of that 70. So yes, you are out of hours. Yes, you're not required, but one of those things is moving from lodging to a location to lodging or whatever. So you absolutely can go to get supplies at a Walmart. Absolutely right, sir. Yeah,
but I'm thinking of 34 so that I have enough funds to full dedicated.
I got you. Yeah,
So
you're not advancing your.
still use its first
Yes,
on anything.
yes, absolutely. You just got to make sure you don't do any servicing to the truck, a truck wash while you're out, or oil change, or anything like that. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and the prohibited on your screen. Everybody should not just skip through that screen because you're hitting the yes button that you met all them qualifications. And if you look at the prohibited, there's 3, right? You cannot take it to get the commercial motor vehicle service for maintenance. You cannot move towards your next dispatch, and you cannot move to the terminal from a customer after loading or unloading. That is considered moving towards your next dispatch. You could move home from that customer or to a lodging, to a truck stop, but you cannot move to a terminal. And quite frankly, our terminals, every customer we got that I know of, there are truck stops that are closer in between there and here. So you can go to a truck stop, which would be nearer anyway than us. So it does say on your device, you cannot move to the terminal after loading or unloading from a customer. But you can go to a nearest safe haven. Now, if some weird way that is, we happen to be that, again, our customers are all around other truck stops that are closer. So it's pretty much not allowed. But you just got to use good judgment there, okay? Uh-huh. Correct. Yep, even if you're bobtailing, that's a great point, David, because you are now readiness to be dispatched, and you are moving towards your next dispatch, which is to pick up that either loaded trailer or empty trailer. So that is your next dispatch. It does not. The rules no longer apply to whether you're loaded or empty. That's why, and I kind of like them because to me it simplifies. Hey, if I'm going to work somewhere and that's going to a customer, then it's on duty driving. It's really simple. And it doesn't matter whether you're empty, bobtail, or loading. So now you get that flexibility that, hey, even if I took a trailer home, I can still PC home with it, but nothing changes the next day. Yeah, great questions. Anybody else, Mr. Producer? All right. Hey, everybody. I almost forgot, right? We are at 8 days without a preventable accident. I've heard some people talk about DOT reportables. We have, for a while now, our accident streak, preventable, is everything, whether they're DOT or not, okay? So it just so happens, though, that our last accident was a DOT reportable. So we're good, but just remember, these 8 days are preventable accidents of almost any kind. You know, the minor, and we consider accidents that usually involve other vehicles. Now, there can be that few exception, if you fall asleep and total the truck or something like that, of course that's an accident. But these bumping of mirrors or stuff like that, we don't really consider them. And we are the big number, the new record, every day is a record, 42 days of get out and look, right? Great job, everybody. Hey, have a blessed day. Get ready for this weekend. Talk to your family members about drinking and driving. This weekend starts the 100 deadliest days. We've got graduation parties, right? Enjoy, celebrate the accomplishments that you've made. But man, do it in a safe, life-protecting way. God bless each and every one of you, and we will talk with everybody again tomorrow morning.